All right, you're welcome. Into never the heart, the cardiovascular system. A very simple thing to go. Into the can define the heart. 1. The heart is a hollow muscular organ located in the thoracic cavity. Into 1. A hollow muscular organ found in the thoracic cavity. So, into a hollow, maybe a hollow, be a say a ending openings, so until one ending and the other ending. It means that be waiting for one ending, a copy for another ending. Into moja, if we be never go, not some different channel, not P, that makes it hollow. And in the thoracic cavity, that is it. Into the heart is a hollow muscular organ found in the thoracic cavity. And heart is full of muscle. It's not kind of muscular. Are you okay? Good. Now, the purpose of this class, actually, explanation will be done in tree, but the parts there remains English. Are you okay? Good. You see, the definition for the heart. Now, let's look at the structures of the heart. Now, heart is having 4 chambers. 4 chambers. 4 chambers. And yet, there were 2 ventricles. And there were 2 atria, which they provide the singular bed and atrium. Good. That is 4 chambers. In the first chamber, your chamber bakuni, chamber bakuni, chamber. You get it? In the question say heart a dying be and as a whole be womb. In the dying create and chamber and hall, chamber and hall. Into Daniel then 4 rooms. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 rooms. Are you okay? Good. Now your bottom ones, bottom 2, and the upper ones. So down ones, you're from ventricles. Into this down ones, you're from ventricle. Into where? Ventricle. Ventricle. So sir, chamber where ventricle. And this one never down has seen in colleague back on we see a ventricle. Entire ventricle and I'm see a ventricle. But in anatomy, when you're looking at something, it's like you're looking at someone else's. Into as you're looking at this diagram, we say, aha, your left side or right side, and a higher than or left side. But in anatomy, you when I say oh here obedient. You get it? It's like a come and I won't pay Jana has here. Kaba say, oh, I say we are facing this way. Say, oh, higher than our left side, and can I have facing this way and a higher right side. But when you say it, although here I'm a say all right, but in anatomy is the other way around. You get it? Into this side of the heart, because heart is divided into 2. Into this side of the heart, near left, and this side of the heart near the air right. So take it from me. All right. Into say higher ventricle. Now higher ventricle. No, I say no. I the left side. Into label here as left. And label here no as right. All right. Into where half of the heart no air left side and half on say right. And you see who say chamber no 4 1 2 3 4 you who I say had anything. Now say had you're from ventricles. So but it's not say your left and right into this side no left you be friend the left ventricle. Let me use the red marker. Left ventricle. Now has it no right say label no and your friend as the right ventricle. Because your ventricles ni be are you okay? Good. Now yanko upper ones and chambers yanko he omudin. Now, I have from atrium, a ventricle, atrium. But our left, definitely saying left atrium. So it's spelled as atrium. So left atrium. And here being the left ventricle, and yes, this side. Hands the right atrium, yes, good. In terms of right atrium, and then right ventricle. Into way and the four main chambers of the heart. Such chambers when amojan ebegugu. Right? It's ebegugu and now referring to different channels and a different vessel. That is it. And get it from now. Alright. Tiantuaso. You see, I want the heart now four main chambers, and our chambers you them atrium, ventricle. Until be a pair two back or left side, back or right side. Right? The four ventricles. That is it. Thank you. Now, yeah. So this side near atrium, such chamber the space never seen the left atrium, space never find the right atrium. Near down hand find the right ventricle, and on this side the left ventricle. So that's it. Now between these chambers there is BB or a valve. Any bakuni. Also valve ni be den I want to say and I want to say you're from valves. So now it's say between the atrium and the left ventricle and our ventricle in the atrioventricular valve. So valve way inti if di ba ko atrioventricular valve, meaning the atrium and the ventricular valve. So I'm referring to atrioventricular valve. But it's an say what the left side of the body and now the heart in the phenomenon. You be level has in the left atrioventricular valve. Yeah, but I have seen so what the right side. This valve or the right side of the heart into all the way between the atrial and the ventricle. So it is called the right atrioventricular valve. Now, the left side ni beam. Now, it's also a din for be. One name, a wonder name. I say the two cusps. Into blood effoma a BC. This is how it beats. So, into our two cups. In some friend bicuspid valve. Bicuspid valve. So, Anna, the dean common name say the mitral valve. Mitral valve. Into channel song. The left side of the heart, the valve now on the friend left atrioventricular valve. And I also two cups Simon chair and the friend bicuspid valve. And the name for on the mitral valve. Now about the right side of the heart, valve now in is between the atrium and the ventricle. And our right side, referencing the right atrioventricular valve. And yes, sir, senior you one. And but that valve we there were three cusps. There were three cusps. So into Ibaku and saying I can swing a three. Until it opens this way, three cups. In terms of finding the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valve. Are you okay? Into this valve, our three cups is called tricuspid valve, and I have two cups called bicuspid valve. And I have to for the left atrioventricular valve. I have the right atrioventricular valve, and I will special name be called the mitral valve. Now the function of the valve is to ensure one flow of blood. The function of a valve is to ensure one flow of blood. In Semoja, say this valve no manaba. Now sound close. Send be amoja no free the ventricle and sound go back to the atrium. And that's one function of what the valves. Ensure one flow of blood. Here to ensure one flow of blood. And when one thing say a bie na moja no air from about a down. Now this valve is held by what we call chordae tendineae. All right. Then again, now some valve we won't say the atrioventricular valve. So now some valve no, there is maybe I can assume to the periphery of the ventricle, right? We start with a friend of the chordae tendineae. The chordae tendineae, a Latin name. In English, we can be the tendinous cords. Now, this tendinous cords, a hoodie valve, no, with the help of a muscle to the periphery. Muscle way, able to hold this cords to the periphery. So now this, and we say this tendon called the chordae tendineae. Now this muscle able to hold this tendinous cords or the chordae tendon to the periphery is called the papillary muscle. So red thing we know is called the papillary muscle. And then because the blood ever through this valve, ne ebaka, this is some way and come back beam. No, in the valve no ever down one. With the help of that cords, Emma valve no and konachi like flap back boom sa, but the cords no ebe holding some valve no konachi to be nakasi, but Emma nem konachi more. So the valve actually the function of this chordae tendineae is to make sure say valve no ebe flap back to but not to the maximum. In other way to convey the blood now by the ventricle back into the atrium. We don't want it that way. Into the muscle no will help with the help of the chordae tendineae ebe buama valve no ebu bia e ko back akokosia to na akasi. That's the function of this chordae tendineae and the papillary muscle. So we have the same thing from this side as well. Are you okay? This side as well. Tendinous cords and the papillary muscle. Very simple structure. All right. Until now, we have the atrium here, atrium, but it's the left side, right? So left atrium, and this is the right side, right atrium. This is the right ventricle, the space here. This is the left ventricle. And this valve is the atrioventricular valve on the right, on the left side. So the left atrioventricular valve. At the same time, called the bicuspid valve because there were two then cavs. So, and now the deeper front side of the man then the mitral valve. Nice. You remember the right side of the heart. This valve is called the atrioventricular valve, but on the right side of the heart. So here's some friend the right atrioventricular valve, and on this side I want three cusps, one, two here, and then one will be here. So the two pins like this. Are you okay? In the blood nerve from this valve helps the blood to return or to come from the right atrium. Now we go the right ventricle. It is called, since all three cusps, then tricuspid valve, and now the right atrioventricular valve. Great. Now, much an if has here bano. Now this side a vena cava, major vein in the body. You can see vein kesipa, major one in our body nimpa the vena cava. Now this our top side, and I will down in draining into the right atrium. Into this side no, your friend no, that's our top no, your friend is superior vena cava. And when you are down, it draining the bottom part of the body into inferior vena cava or vena cava as other people can. You get the point? All right. Into inferior vena cava, we know at the blood be a friend of deoxygenated blood. Now so at the deoxygenated blood, there will go the right atrium. Now right atrium at the right ventricle with the help of this valve. Now from here no, the blood here no empty into a different vessel. This vessel. So now this vessel as the wire structure no. So vessel way no and a friend the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery. Into this vessel is the pulmonary artery. Into about the right pulmonary artery and the left pulmonary artery. So into the deoxygenated blood no ever this way. Now we go the right atrium. Now with the help of this valve, I will go the right ventricle. Now I will fat this vessel, which is called the pulmonary artery. Now called to the lungs. So now called to the lungs. Now there's another valve here. There's a valve because the valve one valve here. Another valve, so be ensure one flow. Say be a blood ne fat we nim na kwa intim sana chimba biem. And there's another valve here. Now this valve is for the pulmonary artery. So it is called the pulmonary valve. It is called the pulmonary valve. Pulmonary valve because for the pulmonary artery. It's also waiting from looking at this valve. It looks I say half a moon. It indeed be a pulmonary arterial semilunar valve. Pulmonary arterial semilunar because it looks like half a moon. Into blood from the superior inferior cava be draining into the right atrium. Now this valve allow namanaba right ventricle. Now I am into this vessel called the pulmonary artery. The help of this valve called the pulmonary valve or the pulmonary arterial semilunar valve. Right? From here now we have the lungs here. And finally here you can see here the lungs. So is what the lungs. So on. Into some which nearby saying a CO2 blood, meaning a deoxygenated blood. Ebe fast saying now about the lungs. About lungs a very fresh this blood. So on. A very fresh that blood. Now adding oxygenated blood. Into this oxygenated blood, now there's another special channel. Ebe convey this you see which about saying oxygenated, which is O2. Into oxygenated blood and I'm very fresh in the whole lungs, right? Now for this vessel, we have four pulmonary veins in the body, in the heart, connecting to the heart. Into this pulmonary veins, ever convey this oxygenated blood back to the heart, into the left atrium. Now the left atrium, the help of this atrioventricular valve, the left atrioventricular valve, or the bicuspid valve, or the mitral valve, are back into the left ventricle. Now from the left ventricle, are empty and also a different vessel. Now some vessel may be empty a friend on the aorta. Into this vessel, a branch about seeing a friend on the aorta. That is the name, right? Aorta into left ventricle. About see now this valve aorta and so valve senior pulmonary artery and so valve aorta and valve a friend aortic valve and also I like a moon and I say half a moon. It is called the aortic valve or the aortic semilunar valve. Aortic valve or the aortic semilunar valve. Into oxygenated blood with the help of the pulmonary veins. So structures is from pulmonary veins. Into when they carry blood from the lungs to the heart, to the left atrium. From left atrium now the valve now somewhere by the left ventricle. Yes. So these are the pulmonary veins here for in humans. Into this pulmonary vein, O2 blood, that is oxygenated blood from the lungs. In some places where the lungs are, from the lungs to the left atrium with the help of this valve. Now back to the left ventricle. Now empty into this special vessel called the aorta. But the valve will be into this valve of the aorta, and I find the aortic valve or the arterial semilunar valve, as we can earlier. Now I show one flow of blood. Now pass through into this vessel, the aorta, and the hemoglobin can supply all parts of the body. And for that matter, one will say the walls of this left ventricle is thicker than all of the walls of the other chambers, because it needs to be higher. I will say able to develop a high pumping pressure to push the blood to pass through this vessel to reach all part of the body. Because note say body baby should receive blood supply. Until if say the pumping pressure was any higher, say push a contract to push blood no after the vessel some part of the body in any bit. Until the walls of it should be thicker, should have a thick muscular wall in order to push the blood through this vessel to reach all part of the body. Until the walls no very thick. Now pushy moja no ye it may distribute to the brain, because when you're in the brachiocephalic, the left common carotid and the left subclavian air going to top part of the body. Now when you're down, right? To the aorta and kasa your when you say up until you call this the ascending aorta. Ascending aorta. And now saying as an arch, where aortic arch. And about down descending aorta. Descending aorta, clearly. Great. Now, if we be deoxygenated blood, and we call something oxygenated blood, you can deoxygenated blood. Now, deoxygenated blood, deoxygenated blood, and you're oxygenated. Yes. Now, deoxygenated here. I release some byproducts in them. Into deoxygenated blood, no, it contains some aspect of what CO2. It's a friend of deoxygenated byproduct, but oxygenated blood, no, oxygen rich O2. It's a friend of oxygenated blood. Until let's describe the blood flow through the heart. Now, the vena cava is the major vein in the body, right? And then it containing a fat deoxygenated blood from the body. Into I say now I'm representing it in blue, but blood in the blue. We don't have any blue blood in the body. The capture of the color of deoxygenated blood. Into by here may representing it in blue, but in a blue. So this is the deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. For the superior and inferior vena cava, right, are draining into the right atrium. Are you okay? Draining into the right atrium. Draining into the right atrium. Draining into the right atrium. So let me write the right atrium here. Right atrium. Draining into the right atrium. Are you okay? Right. Now, from the right atrium, no, that's how blood with the help of this valve, a man acquiring not buying from into the right ventricle. It's a have a good right ventricle. I don't want to draw to waste the marker. So, Mojano ever has this valve or the right side to right atrioventricular valve or the tricuspid valve with the help of the chordae tendineae and the papillary muscle. Now by the right ventricle. Now this blood no is CO2 blood. CO2 blood. It's time we then CO2 meaning it has got some aspect of the byproducts in it. Until CO2. Inside CO2 blood when a friend then the deoxygenated blood. Are you okay? Good. Now so much now full of right first. A BMT about the right atrium. This chamber. Right? Now be go say now this valve I'm an applying now back into the right ventricle. Right ventricle. The right ventricle. A CO2 blood, that is deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. If we go this right ventricular, Afi, I was say CO2 blood, you pay CO2 human body nim. Until say coming out. Into this pulmonary artery, this pulmonary artery. Ebe chief sa moja CO2 no, eda koma lungs. Then find say air lungs. Into sa moja afi about say this valve your friend is saying pulmonary valve or the pulmonary arterial lunar valve. Na moja nam afro sa valve we no echo sa valve. Right? Lungs ni aim you're the left lung and the right lung. Now we go lungs. Here too we going to the right lung. So I believe it's clear. All right. So I'm describing again. All right. Into this blood, no air then CO2 blood. That is deoxygenated blood, CO2. Which I call air then CO2 blood. Good. Now, but you pay CO2 into the byproduct. Back into the blood. But before I move on, the color of deoxygenated blood, and the color of oxygenated blood. A bright red. Into oxygenated blood, a bright red, and a deoxygenated blood, no, a dark red. Into blue, although we are presenting blue, but it's not blue. Are you okay? Now, this deoxygenated blood will pass through the right atrium with the help of the superior and inferior vena cava will empty about right atrium. Now, this valve, the tricuspid valve on the right side, tricuspid valve or the right arterial lunar valve, emanated by the right ventricle. Right ventricle with the help of this valve. Which valve is that? The pulmonary artery, right? The pulmonary valve or the pulmonary arterial lunar valve. Now affirm this the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery now called the right pulmonary artery and the left pulmonary artery. Now that command the left lung. Inside blood they call then CO2 blood. In other words, a deoxygenated blood. But CO2 no. Because harmful to the body, toxic. And say about lungs now, if you move na bahaw, deoxygenated blood na the lungs. Lungs ni no. We have with the respiratory system, right? Say we have the bronchi, the bronchioles, and then the alveoli. Into saying there is gaseous exchange. Into saying no, from oxygen, breathing oxygen eba be diffuse. Oxygen, once in we bring in oxygen and we take out carbon dioxide. CO2 no, and you take it out. Into oxygen, you breathe in, oxygen will come. CO2, O2, oxygen will come. Now, CO2 blood now this deoxygenated blood ni mono. Afi no leave through the circular passing to the nasal cavity now go. It is CO2 now was in the middle lungs now CO2 ni be free. We breathing in oxygen. Now oxygen abesha blood ni ma. Into blood be changing from 8 deoxygenated state to oxygenated state in the lungs. Afi we now was in be change oxygenated blood. That is O2 blood. It's a converted. Now converting vessel be I will say vessel be then epic. At the back of the heart, because although lungs no ain't pump blood to all part of the body, heart and a bit inside human. Into there's a vessel that connects this O2 blood to the heart. Into there's one vessel here. There are 4 in humans. I pick it in O2 blood. See, when I be oxygenated in Epic is O2 blood, and they are the left atrium, I think yes. Into vessel way no for and friend them pulmonary vein. Because any carry oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. Pulmonary veins, and we have 4 in humans. Right, into about say I think now we going for the left atrium. Right, now and this valve ABA. Which valve is this? The left atrioventricular valve, or the mitral valve, or the bicuspid valve. Are you okay? Now into this blood now I say now the O2 blood, it's a friend of oxygenated blood. It is rich in oxygen. Now about the left ventricle. If you drop it, I feel now body now say a pump it come body in heart now. Into heart in this aortic muscular wall, into a pump with a higher pumping pressure. Boom. Nothing by contraction. Nothing a faha. Now come out the aorta. With the help of this valve, into valve is called what? The aortic valve or the aortic seminal valve. Into valve making sure say oxygenated blood in the bone. And means and someone achieve into from then it goes right into it goes this way. And you have the oxygenated blood going through the aorta into a faha. Right, then it will distributing. Then say at the cupboard nan. Then say that is it. Very nice. Nothing. So this is the aorta. So I think it's very simple to understand. Very simple to understand. All right. Now, I didn't say then a CO2 blood, that is when deoxygenated blood, yes, sir. Yes, deoxygenated blood, and then they come lungs. In terms of the function of the pulmonary vein is to send deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lung, and a pulmonary vein. So this is the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery is bringing the oxygenated blood from the heart to the lung. And a pulmonary vein is to bring oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. I think it's a very simple thing to understand and very simple, very simple. To the heart. Are you okay? Okay. All right. In terms of CO2, infravena cava and supravena cava are bringing deoxygenated blood, and we bring it to the right atrium. Right atrium, with the help of this valve, then I bring in the right ventricle. Right ventricle, with the help of this valve, the pulmonary seminal valve or the pulmonary valve. Now called the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery, they come out lungs. Because lungs, how long now then gaseous exchange into CO2 no be pure one thing. Now oxygen then album. Now make it blood no then oxygenated. Now you oxygenated this vein, this vessel, able convey blood now from here to the lungs to the heart, and this vessels are called pulmonary veins. So, about the left atrium. Now they are CO2 rich. Left atrium. Now left atrium, above the left ventricle, the of this valve, left ventricle. It will develop a contract to push with a high pumping pressure to pass through the aorta, then it goes to the body. So blood from the lungs to the heart is oxygenated. And if you do oxygen saturation test on yourself, you'll probably find your oxygen saturation is about 98 to 99%, anyway between 96 to 100%. And if you're young and fit, we put oxygen saturation probe on your finger, you find it to be around 98. And you're allowed to take a few deep breaths and it gets to 100%. Meaning your lungs are completely saturating the blood flowing through them. In the modern air called lungs, they are completely being saturated because in a day we're taking oxygen until it diffuses into that blood in the lungs and makes it oxygenated. I didn't hear oxygenated blood. I didn't hear pressure blood air oxygenated and supplied to all part of the body. So this is the aorta, the bigger vessel. Now I say in your medium size, onset from a big branch, medium size. So medium size. Medium size, now going for small size, it break it. Right? Small size. Now small, small size cry then, a friend then venules, arterials for the arteries. Arterials. And I will soon say when you major vein, but you're in medium. So from here, you know, say they're in vena cava, but you're medium size, and you're then small size veins, and you're then venules. So in this venules, we know ever combined with the arterioles of the big or the medium size or the small size artery. It is all right. So these venules plus the arterioles is what referred to as the capillaries. And capillaries. Are you okay? And the venules, no, any arterioles, they call my friend capillaries. At this point, that is where there's exchange. That is why that oxygen diffusion to the cell tissues. In different say your tissues or the body has tissues, your tissues no has. So good. Now you pay oxygen, baby, oxygenated blood. It's from one body the aorta now. Now if you check medium size and small size arteries, so when I call the arteries. Into about say pep. That is capillary, that's where what the oxygen in my body no. But body so here oxygen I combine with glucose, I form energy. And when you breast a pair oxygenated blood, but CO2 air toxic into say na leave the body. Into about say now oxygen in the blood no will diffuse into the cells. It diffuses then it will combine with glucose. Into say oxygen about cell ni ebe combine with glucose. Now releases energy plus CO2 by energy by CO2 will be a byproduct. Into say combining with glucose, oxygen combined with glucose will release energy plus CO2. But as CO2 because a very toxic to the human body. Internet will be breathing out CO2 humans. In the same panel, CO2 will not be a byproduct. Into a number diffuse back to the venules. We having CO2 here. Now for CO2 now called the medium size, small size, medium size going to large veins. Now back as the oxygenated blood. In the oxygenated blood, it is full of oxygen. Where it goes to the capillaries, now diffusing into the tissues, right? Then to combine with glucose to release energy plus carbon dioxide. But carbon dioxide is toxic, so it becomes a byproduct there and needs to come back to the blood, diffusing into the blood. Now back at the various system now called the lungs, where we breathe out the carbon dioxide due to the gaseous exchange. But note that the oxygenated blood still contains some amount of oxygen. Are you okay? It contains some amount of oxygen because near all the oxygenated you see, so it contains some amount of oxygen. Are you okay? Now the last thing to talk about is the layers of the heart. Layers of the heart. The heart is having 3 layers. So the first one, so you know this is the wall of the. This is the wall of the wall. All right. So the heart is having 3 chambers. The first one can be found at the outside of the heart. The first one I'm talking about at the periphery. Periphery of the heart. It's at the periphery. So this is the first layer to talk about. Now this layer is referred to as the pericardium. Pericardium. This peri means outside, so like a periphery, so around the heart. That is called the pericardium, and it's a fibrous sac, a tough fibrous sac, and it's actually prevents the heart from overexpanding. You see, upon say blood ever heart in man, it expands. So but inside heart expanding the brain is very to be damaging. Because of this fibrous sac around the heart, although the heart expands, but it prevents from overexpanding, in a way protecting the heart from being damaged. That is pericardium. The second layer to talk about is here. The second layer to talk about is this point is full of muscle. Right here, it contains bands of specialized muscles called the cardiac muscles. So you have the cardiac muscles over here. Cardiac muscles over here, this layer, and it's a striated muscle that allows how to contract to the most optimum way. Are you okay? And this is referred to as the myocardium. The myocardium. Myo means muscle, so muscle of the heart. The last one to talk about is endocardium. That one's two lines inside. Let me say blue marker. The endocardium also lines inside of the heart, inside of the chambers. That is where we're having this layer lying inside of the heart, lining inside of the heart, a made up of squamous vascular endothelial cells, and it's a very thin layer, and it has a very smooth surface, and it allows or it ensures the blood to flow smooth, right, into blood. Upon blood entering, because of this lining called the endothelium, it allows a smooth movement of the blood. So endo means inside, endocardium. So realize that the left lung and the right lung are being separated by this junction, right? Now in anatomy and in biology, anything separating two things is referred to as a septum. Right, so you're having a septum. So this is separating the left lung or the right side of the body from the left side of the heart, and it's called the septum. Or others say the cardiac septum. So that is it. So actually, that's very general thing you have to know about the heart. Thank you.